happens during an initial consultation with a lawyer. Your initial consultation is a great way to get to know your prospective lawyer and to figure out whether they are the right person to handle your matter. Each lawyer handles consultations a little bit differently, but today I'll give you a checklist of a few key things that should be discussed during the consultation. First, review your issues and priorities. It's likely that you have already given the lawyer a high-level idea of your problem prior to the call by describing the issue to the lawyer's assistant or client intake coordinator directly, or by filling out the firm's standardized form via website or email. This is to ensure that your matter is generally within the scope of the lawyer's expertise and to pre-screen callers and weed out the scammers and free advice seekers that unfortunately waste our time. Once you're speaking with the lawyer herself, you can get into more specific details about your particular facts and circumstances and share your priorities and goals. Legal privilege generally adheres to communications made by a prospective client in an initial consultation when made in mutual anticipation of forming a binding attorney-client relationship, but you can verbally confirm this with the lawyer while you're speaking if you're at all uncomfortable or unsure. And don't say anything incriminating or confidential until you do. Next, an overview of the lawyer's qualifications and experience. Now, unless you ask, the lawyer probably isn't going to get into every detail of her career path. Much of that information should be on her website bio anyway, and listening to your lawyer's unsolicited humble bragging about her accomplishments is a bad use of both of your time. It is appropriate, however, for you to ask about and for the lawyer to share qualifications and experiences that are directly relevant to your issue. The lawyer won't be able to give specifics about other clients' confidential matters, but you should get the sense that your lawyer is well versed in the relevant area of law and has dealt with matters and clients similar to your situation before. Or if your case is truly bizarre and unique, which definitely does happen sometimes, the lawyer should be able to explain why she's suited to handle it and what other legal options may or may not exist elsewhere. Next, you'll have a high-level discussion of options. Oftentimes, the lawyer may be able to give you multiple suggestions right on the call for options as to how to proceed, depending on your level of risk aversion, budget, time constraints, and many other considerations. Other times, the lawyer may need to review applicable law and think the matter over, and she'll follow up via email with various options. Either way, this is why it's helpful to be as honest and clear as possible during the review your issues and priorities portion of the call. If you provide accurate and complete information, the lawyer will be able to present more and more viable options for how to proceed, and she'll also be able to give you a solid estimate of anticipated costs. I talk about this in other videos, and sometimes it's unavoidable, but when a whole bunch of critical new information emerges after the introductory calls, or when the client changes her mind about which approach to pursue, that's when legal fees are likely to soar over the initial budget and it can strain the parties' relationships. Next, there should be an explanation of fees and firm policies. The lawyer may or may not be willing to give you a cost estimate or fee quote off the cuff on the call, depending on the complexity of your matter. But the lawyer should at least be able to explain your options for hourly billing, flat fees, contingency services, or whatever, depending on what the law firm permits. Sticking to hourly billing only is still the most common practice, especially for business law attorneys, so the lawyer should give you her hourly billable rate and mention those of any junior associates, counsel, staff, or others that are likely to spend significant time working on your matter. It is definitely preferable for both sides to sort out any confusion now, up front, rather than waiting until after you've received your final bill. Finally, there's an opportunity for questions. I have a free one-page handout called "A Dozen Questions to Ask Before You Hire Your Attorney" that I'll send to you if you sign up for my mailing list. You may have additional questions as well, and you can and should feel free to ask them on this call. There's no reason to be intimidated. As long as you stay within the time allotted for the call, the lawyers plan for this, and she has a responsibility to make sure you're making a sufficiently informed and voluntary decision to proceed with the engagement. The biggest variation between lawyers is the length of the call and how in-depth into your legal issues the lawyer is willing to go before a formal engagement letter is signed. On the financial side, many lawyers are happy to chat with a legitimate prospective client for 15 minutes or half an hour, but it becomes cost prohibitive to have multiple free consultations each day or even each week that are running for an hour or longer. This is supposed to be an introductory call, so if you're spending 60 minutes on the phone, it's likely that you're getting into the weeds of the issue. As lawyers, we have to be wary of the people who will call a dozen different law firms trying to weasel free legal advice out of each so that they don't have to pay anyone at all. And beyond the financial considerations, we also need to be mindful of the rules of professional conduct, which limit our ability to give legal advice without a formal engagement in place. Please check out my earlier videos on engagement letters for how the attorney-client relationship is established and memorialized. The upshot here is that 15 to 30 minutes should be plenty of time to cover everything on your checklist, and you should have a pretty good idea of whether or not you'll want to move forward with that lawyer. But we'll save that for an upcoming video where I'll give you an overview of next steps after the initial consultation is complete. Business owners, what questions do you have about the initial consultation process that weren't covered here?